starting right now. We've got a panel called Location, Location, Location. Why is where you set up your studio still important? Can I please welcome to the stage Rhoda Campbell from Trade and Invest British Columbia, Solon Bucholtz, LBC Studios, Dylan Gedig from Red Nexus Games, Mike Wozniewski from Hololabs, and Emma Bullen from Hippo Entertainment. I really want to know about this, so please come and join us.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Rhoda Campbell, and I'm here on behalf of the British Columbian government, which is on the west coast of Canada. The famous city is Vancouver, and we also have other large cities like Victoria and Kelowna. We've got a collection of our studios that have come over from Canada for the event, and we just really want to talk through some of the considerations you have if you were growing internationally, and what that you might like to consider why a location is important. Now, I have done a few of these talks, and usually they're completely stale because we talk about tax credits and talent acquisition. So because BC has got a lot of unique offerings, I want to go through a different angle with you all today and really allow our amazing game developers and studio founders to talk about their personal experience, why BC's ecosystem feeds into the culture of their company and their success, and how their company feeds into the success of British Columbia, and why it remains one of the top locations for game development studios in the world. So I'd like to start with you, perhaps Dylan. You are an indie developer, and you have come through the pandemic, which very much shaped your operations. And if you could just describe to us a little bit about how your team's set up, and how you've drawn on your experience of being in BC and working with BC to really move your game quite successfully into its recent shifts.
Sounds good. Thank you, Rhoda. Yeah, you touched on some interesting things. Like, we are an indie studio. We were built up in BC. We were in Victoria for a while, and now we're a bit more distributed since the pandemic. But our studio really came about from a lot of the local cities and local communities that were around us. So, we were from Victoria. There's a great game jam scene in Victoria. Great venue for Global Game Jam every year. They used to have Orca Jam was just one that the local local group had put together. And the proximity from Victoria to both Vancouver and Seattle just worked so well in our favor. Technically, we could walk to either city because we were right downtown. You could walk to get on a ferry to Seattle. 3 hours later, you're just at PAX. It was so well for getting things just kind of out into the world that way. And similar to Vancouver, you could walk to the bus, and from the bus, you're on the ferry, you're in Vancouver. That was just really excellent. So that kind of collaborative nature of the city itself and then the surrounding areas just worked so well for us. And then when the pandemic happened, you kind of touched on that as well. The team kind of spread out a bit further. 5 of the 6 of us are still around BC, but we kind of live still in Victoria. A couple of us live in the Okanagan, which is a really beautiful area if you ever have the chance to visit. And we weren't super impacted necessarily because our workflow was already just so online. Our project management flow was always based on Trello. All of our communication was through Discord. We didn't actually have an office. We would kind of use co-working spaces sometimes for meeting rooms and such. But when the pandemic happened, it didn't really impact us that much. It was we were already kind of built for that style of workflow, and that worked really well for us. That worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, one of the aspects that I've learned from this general trend of companies going a little bit more mobile, forced on by the pandemic, but also embraced since, is if there's an existing infrastructure in the location where your studio is, that's going to help you have the ebbs and flows of any company's growth. If you're in a location and trying to grow your company in a location that doesn't have those natural infrastructures or those natural networks, or maybe they haven't come back as a natural network to get from, in our case, from Canada to the US, really simply, like you said, jump on a bus or a ferry, then you're automatically coming across, challenges that other locations do not have to consider, like we don't have to consider in Canada the same way, that network distribution. Solon, you have grown a company over the last 9 years, right? 7 years, sorry. And you're located across the whole of Canada, right? And you founded the company in BC. Could you talk us through a little bit of an understanding on how your company has benefited from the unique, culture of BC?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Rhoda. So for those that don't know, British Columbia is an incredibly diverse community in terms of geographically as well. So where I come from, I'm not actually in Vancouver. I'm about an hour out in a town called Langley. And we started as an outsourced studio, and then we actually brought everything in-house in Gastown, which is a very cool community in downtown Vancouver. The pandemic obviously shut a lot of studios down in terms of people coming face-to-face. And it actually set us up for a really unique opportunity to recognize that talent isn't concentrated in the city of Vancouver. It's actually spread out, BC and beyond. So as we went back to remote, and we're now a fully remote studio, it's actually allowed us to foundationally support people in terms of what their lifestyles look like. It doesn't have to be living in the city, can be costly for lots of people. BC offers a lot of diversity in terms of mountains, getting to the Okanagan, green space, the island, and through that there's a high level of connectivity, as you mentioned, in terms of infrastructure, being able to travel around. So we're fully remote. We really try to entwine in our company values the ability to support personal goals. So working with our team to understand what they value in life and how the business supports their goals in life to connect people. So for myself, I'm not a city person. I'm an hour outside. I've got a farm. That's part of my life. And just the fact that I can run a gaming studio remotely, work with our team remotely, and when we do want to come together we do monthly company events, getting people together to try to find that balance between fully remote but also fully together collaboratively. We can bring people from the island quite easily and cost effectively over, meet centrally in Vancouver or Burnaby, get together for the day, and then go back to our lifestyles. So I think BC offers diversity in terms of what communities look like. I think it offers diversity in terms of your personal values. And for us as a company, it's a great place to set up. And again, overall for the game industry, we are in the Pacific Standard Time Zone, so you are easily connected with Seattle, connected with California. I think it's probably one of the more preferred time zones in terms of finding outsource and timeline work. I just honestly, I couldn't think of a better place to set up my business.
Well, thank you. I couldn't have said it better, so thanks. Just keeping it on you, Solon, I'd really like to understand, also because you have a couple of people stretched across the whole of Canada, and I really would love to get an appreciation. You touched on diversity in BC itself, but I wanted to talk about this sort of maturity of really the industry and the eco space in BC, and how that lends to your company being able to choose to prioritize people, to recognize their talent, and build a company from those really from those standpoints, rather than just going in and thinking, right, we've got to push out this game, we've got to be competition, we've got to, just basically muzzle people's lives. So just talking about the maturity of the ecosystem in BC and across Canada. Put you on the spot.
That's a big question.
Put you on the spot.
So for me, there's probably two parts of that. 7 years ago when I started this company, I didn't come from the gaming industry, so I probably, looked at the challenges very differently. As a serial entrepreneur, I really cared about starting businesses from my values. And going through this industry and then hearing the stories of people coming from different companies and recognizing that those values don't always transcend in every business. For us, honesty and passion and fearless communication and building trust with your team was critical, because I didn't have the experience or expertise to set up in that sort of environment. And I think what is really unique going outside of the business is the level of collaboration and authentic discussion that does happen in BC between studios. You know, I didn't realize that that wasn't commonplace in our industry, but I can tell you firsthand, you know, understanding the struggles, navigating, you know, the changing trends in mobile, which we're in. There are several studios in Vancouver. Can see one of the heads in the back of the room right now that, you know, we talk. And we talk openly, and we talk vulnerably about the challenges we're facing. And, you know, we're both competitors, but we're also collaborators. And for me, I think that's incredible. There are a couple specifically in Vancouver, you know, Kenshi at ATA and Josh sitting at the back in ESG. You know, we're in the same space, literally competing with cannabis games, and yet we can sit down, we can talk about the challenges, we can talk about how we can build each other up. And I think culturally in Vancouver, there's a desire for all of us to succeed. We want to put Vancouver on the map as one of the top mobile game places to be. They're doing it in the schools, they're doing it with their talent, and I think the only way we can do it is if we do it together. Is that a good way of answering it?
Whoa.
Yeah, you kind of, you know, even the competition really, I would say it's much more of like a friendly competition than it is really about like one studio is going to succeed, one studio is going to fail. You really see like this rising tide that's lifting all boats, right? Like even competing in the exact same genre of game against each other. Like we've had a lot of success like bundling games, you know, finding our direct competitors, putting them in a bundle together, and then utilizing that to like grow both of our businesses. Like it's such a collaborative area and industry there that it's just awesome. It works really well.
Thank you. So BC has got so the veteran location really with game studios starting 25, 30 years ago, and it sort of rose against time. Hololabs, Mike, you moved over from Quebec, and you've got quite an interesting spread across entertainment and game and quite new technology. Really want to hear about your personal experience on the West Coast and how location has really enabled your company and your new technology to blossom, really.
Yeah, so we started in Montreal and moved to Victoria, right near, well, with Dylan, and near Vancouver. So between Montreal and Vancouver, I think those are probably the two sort of biggest gaming centers in Canada, and I would say the difference moving to Vancouver is maybe people are more spread out, or maybe this is just time that's spreading people out a little bit more. But Montreal was very, very centralized. Talking about sort of the competition and like the ecosystem between the companies, I found in Vancouver and surrounding areas, well, let's talk about Victoria. I'm in Victoria. So in Victoria, since the gaming industry is inherently project-based, you do end up having ebbs and flows of people working on one project with one company and kind of moving over to the other. It's very funny how many connections I have in my company to other gaming studios. We have shifted over staff from one to the next, and we do help each other out too. So it's really nice to be able to you know, contact your fellow studios and ask for help when you are growing and you need another artist real quick or something like that, or you might be slowing down and you might have somebody that you want to retain, but they need a little bit of work, and that both of those situations have happened with me, and it's been really nice to be able to talk to the community and have that happen. So so what else? We moved and grew over the past decade or so in Victoria, and yeah, I would say, you know, pandemic happened and we sort of exploded out everywhere, and we have people now, a few staff in Vancouver. Most of us are in Victoria. We have some up island, so we have a little bit of a spread of people everywhere. But gradually we've been sort of coming back in. We opened up got a bigger office, and we've really been returning back to the office lately. I don't know if that's just because everyone wants to get back together, but it's a creative industry, and I think that we've all realized that it's nice to be in touch with people closer. And our employees in Vancouver or Up Island, it's not that far to get in. So they do come in and they take the ferry across and come in for a day, or they'll stay the night even, and so they'll get 2 days back to back where they come in and hang out in the office. And those are really for those creative moments where you got to get in front of the whiteboard and really do things. And also for onboarding, because we've been trying to hire more younger students, and students tend to be in Vancouver because that's the major city where there's a lot more schools and programs for learning game development and game design and all that. So we go over there and we recruit in Vancouver mostly, and now we're allowing our students to stay in Vancouver, have the choice to come to Victoria, but definitely for onboarding, it's nice that we can just bring them over for a couple of days and introduce them to the studio that way.
Thank you. Really one of the things I'm feeling across the sense of this conversation is really the ease in which people, participate in business life and in the studio's objectives. Emma, I'm really keen to just hear a little bit about your personal experience, and then I want to go back to talk about really about productivity and that balance between the location, and in this case, British Columbia's really got a high emphasis on high quality of life. That's something we're really proud about. But why do we still have studios that are so successful over a long period of time? They are so productive in what they're trying to do. So I would like to go back to that, but first, Emma. So you're originally from the UK, and you moved over to Canada. And I'm really keen to just get an understanding, because if studios or founders were thinking about setting up in somewhere like BC or in any other location, they really go on a personal journey. It's your life, it's your family, it's your lifestyle changes, you're away from family. And I just want to just get an understanding of that journey you took, how it looked, how it feels now, how it developed you as a person and professionally and personally.
Sure, great question. So I I went straight to Kelowna, which is in the Okanagan, beautiful location. I went straight there from Southeast London in 2010. And at the time, I was working with Club Penguin, so we had an office based in Brighton. And I was commuting, I think it was an hour and a half from Southeast London every day. And so I was a member of the creative team in Kelowna, flying out once or twice a year to do training, and every time I went there, they seemed to be having more fun than I was. So I think that was, part of the draw for me was a hugely creative part of the world, which I didn't previously knew existed, an absolutely stunning area. So there is, a couple of days of the year where you can both, you can ski and then play golf on the same day. It's a really interesting climate that, you've got a lot of different outdoor activities. So I think when they basically said to me, would you rather swap your commute time from that hour and a half to, say, 10 minutes? I was very much like, I'm in. Where do I sign up? So I went through that process of immigration, and at the time brought in on a working visa. That's sped up quite a lot these days, which is lovely. We can reach out to diverse talent, and I think we've onboarded people, brought them in from New Zealand and Spain, in a matter of like 10 days getting our visas ready, which is considerably better than when I did it in 2010. So yeah, I went with the intention of staying for 6 months, and I'm still there. I think that's coming up for 12 years, crazy. So I left Disney, and I'm now working at Hippo, which is co-founded by the founder of Club Penguin, Lance Prieb, and with Sam, who's with us today. And really just staying for the lifestyle and the opportunities. And I think I was really blown away by how creative it was, and also how beautiful it was. And I think, as I like to say to my friends, when I was in England, the idea of going to North London at the weekend would just fill me with dread. It's that kind of like, oh, it's going to take me ages to get across London. But for some reason in Canada, if somebody says to you, we're going to go to Vancouver this weekend, it's about a 4-hour drive, it's so much easier. It's really strange, and it's really beautiful. So when I moved, thinking towards, you were talking about productivity. So we are, we're headquartered in British Columbia and have had offices in Kelowna, which during the pandemic we used less and less, and started hiring team members in different places in Canada, and we're now fully remote. So we have different hubs in different areas, and have that challenge of really keeping in touch with everybody and keeping productive, which we, similar, you were talking about tools, so trying to do that through tools and trying to avoid endless meetings, and getting together as a group, as you were talking about too.
Mike, I'm going to go back to you just because I'm going to start and work towards me. I really want to get a sense, if you guys are running businesses, these have to work. You're paying wages, and you're based in BC. So it would be really great for me to understand, like, how is it that you guys have all just expressed the collaborative nature of BC, which I believe is completely unique, and I'm an international location specialist. So for me, promoting BC is always amazing because it just is genuinely collaborative and yet still be competitive with the world. So I would like to understand, you running a studio, how do you keep things moving forward on a business sense while still respecting that, it's people that make this happen?
Interesting question. Well, I don't know. So BC is also on the West Coast. I think the West Coast has a little bit of a, fast, business-focused personality, I guess, right? So we have, the Silicon Valley right below us. We have, Hollywood and everything a little further south. So Vancouver is a big destination for film and television and creative entertainment industry in general. And so there's a lot of transfer from that industry to gaming, and a lot of collaboration as well, especially as, all those industries are becoming more real time now. You have like live production facilities where they're using game engines to make cinema right now. We work in the theme park industry now, which is using live game engines to do theme park rides now. So it's all kind of coming together. And so I guess we're just, sharing with that technology and sharing towards that common goal of entertainment. And sort of lost the track of the answer to this question, but I guess in general, you have a lot of people that come to Vancouver to do these kind of production-oriented things, whatever the entertainment industry is, and then they sort of branch out, and sort of several people retire there because it's beautiful, and you have the access to skiing and golf during the same day, like was mentioned, or surfing or mountain biking or whatever, right? So it's a destination where people want to be, and so you end up having a lot of skill and a lot of experience in this area that you can count on, and people are forming businesses in their later years, and then transferring their skill set to other industries. So we have quite an opportunity for that collaboration where these people are around, and you can talk to them, and you can start up new things together, and back to the employees there, and giving them something to look forward to. They come there, or they're there probably for the environment and the natural beauty, but we are all trying to make that productive business come out of that as well, and try to balance that. So I don't know if that was a good answer, but.
Yeah, do you have any comment? I mean, you're a much smaller team, really on the precipice of a lot of change as you move from platform to mobile. How are you finding that collaborative, but the lifestyle, but also really that competitive edge and drive of the West Coast is fueling your team and growing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you raised some interesting points with our proximity to, being in the same time zone as like Silicon Valley and Apple and Google. Like, that is really hard to overstate. Like, if you need help, if something's going on during your workday, having those be their support hours just works really well. Microsoft and Amazon right just across the border from us, like, that is super, super helpful. Valve, like, just you're in the proximity of all these big companies without all of the additional expenses of, living in these major cities, major American cities, because, that dollar value, that dollar change still goes a very long way. For us, when it comes to, keeping that team moving as an indie developer, it's quite excellent because you have all of these big companies, in all of the cities that I mentioned, and also Vancouver, all of those companies that are coming, into the VR space, the XR space, all of the movie production that is happening there. You have these big companies kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you see these big rounds of layoffs. There's a couple happening now, and it's never good to see at first, but what tends to happen, I've found, is this kind of effect where the people that leave end up starting their own things, and you just see these waves of innovation that come from it. And Mike kind of touched on it earlier as well, where when you have these really tight-knit game development communities, the founders can all just go sit in a room and have a couple of beers and chat and talk about what might be happening between projects, and make it as easy as possible for people to land on their feet. And that just goes a long way. As indie devs, I was working at a bigger company and just kind of splintered off of that. They had done a couple of rounds of layoffs that I was lucky enough to avoid. And then some of the people on our team, were impacted by those layoffs. And that's just kind of a thing where you kind of get some organic growth just outside of that, right? And when you bring enough talented, driven people together, you're going to see some really excellent growth and innovation come out of that.
Solon, you are a serial entrepreneur, that I understand. I'm putting you building this up. I'd really like to, and you work in the very creative industry, I'd really like to get your experience and get a sense of your experience, sort of moving in and out of different businesses while staying in one location. I want to just get a sense of the versatility in your life and how that's been fueled by being in one place. I mean, a lot of people here have, maybe moved cities, maybe moved countries in order to have that versatility, in order to have that inspiration, in order to kind of, really drive their life. And you're, founder of a company, 7 years old, bringing, with your team. And I just want to get a sense of your experience in fueling that growth, really, and that riding those waves.
Trying to think how to best answer that question. Yeah, I am a serial entrepreneur for sure. And, I've been in a couple different industries. I think why I'm passionate about the industry I'm in games right now and with LBC specifically, turning ideas into reality takes a lot of hard work. Success is not always guaranteed, so you really have to find passion in the ride and the journey. I think a big part of what I've loved about being able to do that in British Columbia fundamentally is the people. Again, 7 years ago I didn't come from a gaming industry, and yet in 7 years I was able to surround myself with incredibly talented leadership, being able to trust that they're giving you good advice, and that comes through a learning curve, for sure. But there's enough ways to validate, and there's enough ways to get in a room with people from every level in British Columbia. There's enough support outside of the pure talent, and I know we don't want to talk too much on the dry topics, but the reality is they are an important part if you have P&L responsibility. If you're looking to get good advice, anything from, I think you mentioned being able to just spin up your own first company. If you're looking for, grants, support, government, understanding, talent, get in a room with someone in the space that you want to be in and just ask questions on how they started and experience share. And the level of vulnerability that comes with it, I think that deep level of connection is what everybody seeks in any business. And it exists in gaming in British Columbia for sure. And I think that's probably why I feel so connected to it, is again, it comes down to the people. The last couple years, I think anyone in this industry is aware that we've we've gone on a bit of ride up, and we're facing some turbulent times for sure. But I just had my annual planning session just before I came here, and my quarterly planning session with my leadership team, and I've never walked out of that room uninspired. And I think that has a lot to do with the people and the place we work, and I hope that answers the question.
That was so beautiful. Well done. And I put you on the spot. Actually, I've been putting them all on the spot the whole way through this. Emma, we've talked a little bit about Solon's journey over the last 7 years and really coming into the game industry that way. I'd like to now just ask you a little bit, because you're in a strategic position in a well-established studio. I just want to understand, like, how are you looking forward now, and how are you pulling in the resources that are available to you in Canada and also your connections internationally to really move the company forward? And what are you excited about?
That's a great question. Where do I start? I think, like everyone, we're following the industry globally. We're seeing what's happening. We're keeping our eye on our data sources. We're watching not just our North American English-speaking audiences. We're also looking at new regions globally. So starting to see, how to develop in those different regions. And as been, previously alluded to, we're collaborating with each other. So we're, reaching out to different studios that have implemented tools that are working and saying, what did you do? What issues did you come up with? That sort of thing. That's been hugely helpful. What else are we doing? I think we have a number of our team working on research projects. We've actually just kicked off a project this last week with University of British Columbia, and a great group of students that are dedicated to helping us do research in different regions, which is fantastic. So they're doing that as part of their schooling, and we're reaping the benefits, which is a wonderful thing. So yeah, I'm excited about everything, to be honest. It's really great to just seeing the mobile games community grow, and I think we are coming up for a rough patch, and we know that, but as you previously said, it's like great things come out of rough patches. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation coming out in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Well, we're coming to towards the end of our talk. One thing I'd really like you each to do, if possible, is to, summarize to any of the people here that are considering a location either for stimulating their career, stimulating their studio, and again, keep it more to the points of just real life, because you can talk to me afterwards about tax credits and costs, and I can help you with your business costs, whatever you like. That's what I'm here for, but I really want to draw on these personal, amazing people's experience, which you will not get access to otherwise hearing. So again, just to reiterate, like what advice, single piece of advice would you give to somebody if they're really looking at driving themselves personally forward, their goals forward, and why location feeds into that genuinely? Mike?
Okay, you said not to talk about tax credits, but I don't know if it was mentioned. I came in like a little late. I'm sorry for that, but there are government programs that are quite amazing in British Columbia and Canada as a whole. So, if you're coming in to a new location or considering a new location, I think this is hugely important, and we haven't talked about it yet, but I could rattle off, Creative BC, Digi BC, Innovate BC, the tax credits, SHRED, scientific research tax credits, IDMTC, interactive digital media tax credits. There's like a whole list of things that is offered and support organizations. We have got games funded by the Canada Media Fund, so there's federal things. So tapping into those can help a studio kick off or sustain it through rough patches as well. And a lot of these are innovation funds. So it helps bring in talented industry and helps grow talent and innovation as a whole. So not to be understated, and it's the reason that we're here right now and the reason that we came over, and and continue to thrive. So if there's anything, that would be my one recommendation. Don't gloss over those and don't skip those, and research the heck out of them, because it can get you going.
Yeah, if you're looking at it from the studio side, those can't be overstated either. Like, those are really, really important. You know, in addition to all the ones you rattled off, like, we're looking at hiring some co-op students for the first time this year, and the process is just made so easy, and the funding process, like, it's phenomenal. It really is, like, just very, very exciting. So yeah, if you're looking for a place to, you know, start up a studio or start up a branch of a studio, that's a good thing to look at. If you're looking for like a personal relocation, I would definitely, you know, go visit, go check things out. The Global Game Jam does actually have like some organizational presence in the UK, but currently most of the board members are based, you know, between Vancouver and Seattle, just because it's such a hotbed. The IGDA, the previous executive director, just went from Seattle to Vancouver. So these big, you know, not-for-profit organizations are also based there, and can make a personal, like, you know, making those job springboards between organizations really, really easy. You know, you have a lot of different events thrown there because of that, because it's so easy to look in their backyard and host them locally, as well as all of the different international ones. Yeah, you know, Vancouver is kind of in between not having any big international gaming events right now. You know, we've had a Pocket Gamer in the past, we've had a GDC in the past, so it can often fly by some people's radar. They don't think to go there for a convention, to go check things out. But there's a lot of, you know, just, we have like full indie Vancouver. There's a lot of more local organizations. So if you ever go over for something like Seattle, making sure that you pop up on the train and go visit Vancouver for a few days, you know, I highly recommend it. Just check things out if you're looking on a personal level. And, you know, as Mike was saying, again, with the, you know, they call it Hollywood North because it's so much cheaper to go up and film stuff there. So if you're looking at maybe making a lateral movement as well, like if you're looking, you've been in gaming for a couple of years, you're interested in maybe going into, you know, CGI, working for like things on movies and digital effects, there is so much of that there. It is just unbelievable. So there's a lot of things kind of adjacent to games as well, which provides, you know, again, a lot more of that reliability. Like if you lose a job there are literally hundreds of companies that are hiring all year round, and it's usually very, very easy to land on your feet there as well, which, you know, it's you don't like planning for the worst, but if you're in the right spot, it almost takes care of it for you, which goes a really long way.
Yeah, I think there's lots that's been shared on the business side there. I mean, obviously, the audience here is probably pretty diverse, and if you're running the studio, talk to Rhoda. I'm sure she can help you on the setting up the business, but if you're in a specific discipline, you know, whatever that might be, a creative discipline, an engineer, an artist, a designer, I think one of the great things about life is growth, and taking risks is a big part of growth. If you're going to take a risk and jump over the pond and land in BC, I think the reality is you'll grow. And I think you'll probably find a place to grow. You know, the last year, again, has, you know, been challenging, and it's probably exists on this side as well. But I think going back to that collaboration and that sort of discussion that happens between the studios, as businesses we talk, but even at a level of taking care of our talent and taking care of a team, we also talk. So a very clear example of this is, you know, we've had quite a few inbound candidates come in across disciplines, and even if we can't place them, we make it a priority of our HR team to actually go talk to the other studios and see if we can place them elsewhere. So if you're going to take a jump, I think it's a safe place to land.
Emma, just one last minute.
Yeah, I think we're saying come for the lifestyle and stay for the tax credits. That's the to summarize. Yeah, beautiful part of the world, and really, I don't know if we've emphasized that enough. You know, Kelowna's wine district, it's a lovely place to land, and yes, I think to your point, you know, it's a great growth opportunity. So yeah, definitely worthwhile.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your expertise, for giving us a real, genuine, and authentic insight into your lives. It was really important for me to show you guys that, because that is what is unique about BC. And really, if any of you want to talk to us, we are in a lounge downstairs on the ground floor. You can see the BC British Columbia banner plus the studio's logos. But come and have a chat. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you, everyone.